rhyming is overrated. No, don't like that.
Are you serious?
If there's one thing that I see every single new songwriter and a lot of seasoned songwriters do that is just a massive mistake, it is to over-rhyme. And specifically, they over-perfect rhyme. Now, I would argue in all cases, it is way more important to have your lyrics communicate exactly what you want to say rather than fitting some arbitrary rhyme scheme that you happen to make up. Because ultimately, people don't usually even notice if the song rhymes. Now, just because they don't notice doesn't mean it doesn't have value. I would argue that if you want to have an even more cohesive sounding lyric, certainly rhyming helps with that, but it's not nearly as important as saying what you want to say with the lyrics and making sure the meter is perfect. So what I mean by meter is really just that the rhythm naturally occurring within the words matches the rhythm that is occurring in the melody. Now, there are certainly times that you can get away with this, specifically at the end of phrases, but often, especially in the middle of phrases, making sure that the naturally occurring emphases of the lyrics and the naturally occurring emphases, or the ones you choose to have, I guess, within your melody, the naturally emphasized parts of your melody actually match up. And this is going to be way more important to cohesion overall compared to just rhyming. And another issue with people over rhyming is they usually end up not really saying even what they mean to say, or going to super cliched rhymes, or even having phrases that don't even make sense really to the song, and you can just tell that they just changed what they were saying literally just to fit a rhyme scheme. You may have heard, especially when it comes to movies or books, that something you never want to see is the hand of the artist. This is when, for example, you have a theoretically intelligent character, but then in order to make certain plot points happen, they sort of do something that's out of character, and you say that you see the hand of the author or of the director. And the idea is that character wouldn't really do something that stupid. So it's the writer not being able to figure out how to make this plot event happen naturally. So instead, they sort of are like, oh, we'll just say that the character turns really stupid for 5 minutes. That makes sense, right? So that's sort of the same thing that you get when you have that forced rhyme where it's just like, ooh, that's not really what you wanted to say here. You just went for the rhyme scheme and you couldn't figure out something that actually worked to both rhyme and be exactly what you mean to say. And you can tell. So just to be clear, I do think that rhyming does have value. I just think it's largely overvalued by most songwriters, especially beginning songwriters, because they think that sort of everything needs to be slave to the rhyme, where they will do anything to make sure, oh, I gotta make sure I have this A-B rhyme, rather than just saying exactly what they mean to say with their lyrics and having the right words and having a perfect meter that goes along with the melody. Instead of thinking of all those things first, which are all more important than some arbitrary rhyme scheme, they sort of just are like, as long as I have the rhyme, the rest doesn't matter. But really, it should be, if anything, the opposite. And rhyming should be seen as a bonus, whereas something like meter should be seen as a non-negotiable that you have to get right. So yes, rhyming absolutely can be a great way to make a lyric even more cohesive and a great way to level up your lyric, but it certainly shouldn't be the most important thing to you. Because actually, if you look at even a bunch of songs that you like, you probably will find that a lot of them either have sections that don't rhyme at all, or at least don't use perfect rhymes, where they might use something like a slant rhyme, or something where, say, the consonants rhyme, but the vowel doesn't, which to be a perfect rhyme, you have to have the consonants at the end of the word and the vowel match. So hopefully this was helpful to you. If it was, something else you'll likely find helpful is my 10 different ways to start writing a song free guide. Whether you're new to songwriting or a seasoned veteran, there should be something in there for you, because overall, I'm a huge fan of changing up how we start writing our songs. I think this is one of the easiest ways to stay creative and to not get into a creative rut, because sometimes if you just always sit down with your guitar and start with a chord progression, you'll just start to use the same chord progressions, or you'll start to run out of creative freedom and just feel like, I don't know, I feel like I've done everything already. But just by changing it up and maybe starting with a lyric first, or maybe starting with, say, a song title that you find interesting and then reverse engineering, well, okay, Whispers of Angels, that's an interesting song title. What would that song be about? Or starting with a great bass line or a great melody. There are so many different ways to start writing a song. And I think there are a lot of really strong ways to start writing a song. It can be a great way, if you're new to songwriting, to be able to figure out different ways that you could approach the start of your song and really starting your first song or your third song or wherever you're at. But even for a more seasoned songwriter, this should help you as well. I know for me, yes, my bread and butter is me sitting at a piano and starting with what I think is an interesting piano riff, and then I usually write the melody on top of that piano riff and then start doing the lyrics from there. That's usually what I do. But sometimes I will just run out of creative room. I'll sit at that keyboard or piano and be like, I feel like I've done all this before. I feel like everything I'm doing just doesn't seem that memorable. But just switching to, say, writing a bass line, even if it still is with a keyboard or piano, I don't need to get my bass out necessarily, or starting with a guitar riff, or starting with an interesting sound, or maybe I take a recording of my dog barking and pitch it down and stretch it out. And I'm like, oh, that's an interesting sound, and then build a song off of that. So there's so many different ways to start writing a song. If you're interested in that, be sure to check it out. Link in the description down below. Thank you so much for watching. I appreciate every single one of you. I'll talk to you in the next one.